All right, parents, welcome back to another conversation starter. Pastor Mario.
Dawson, the youth leader.
There we go. And yeah, we're going to just do a quick recap of this past Wednesday's youth group, what we talked about. We're still going through Gloom to Glory, story of Joseph, and we're coming up on the end of that. So this Wednesday will be in 45, and then this Sunday, you're going to end Genesis with the Youth Sunday. Mm-hmm. And so that's going to be cool. It's been
a year.
9 months, a year?
In August will have been a year, so pretty much a year.
A year in Genesis. I mean,
yeah.
I am very surprised that all of our kids have not left. Because a year in Genesis is no easy.
It's no joke.
It's no easy feat.
And we actually did it. We read all the chapters.
We read all the most of all the chapters.
No genealogies.
We didn't read the genealogies, and we kind of summarized some other chapters as we started to get to the end stretch.
Yeah, we did.
But it just had to be done.
We put our head down and got through it.
But point being, it's been a long road in Genesis. It's been a good road. And so these final pieces that we're coming up in with Joseph, we're starting to kind of enter into this where he's now positioned in a place of honor. And like he's now the second in command in Egypt. And he's kind of made it through this time of suffering of what you said it was like 11 years? 12 years, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17? 13 years?
13 years of trial.
13 years of just pure suffering, man.
Yeah.
And so now he is entering into this place. So last week we talked about how, he's been second in command in Egypt for a while. And now his brothers, because of the famine that's been going on, it's been going on for, I think it says 2 years now. Mm-hmm. And they don't have food in Canaan. Mm-hmm. Where his fathers are, where his family is, they don't have food. So they have to travel to Egypt because Joseph is like the one who's distributing this food and this grain. Because
Egypt is pretty much the only place, we're led to believe Egypt is the only place with food.
The reserves. Yeah. I mean, that's the only place.
It even says in 41 that without a wise man of God, the world would have collapsed.
Yeah.
Because Egypt was the place that stored up enough grain. So.
Yep. So Joseph's brothers make the trek to Egypt where they meet Joseph again, but they don't know it's Joseph. They just know that this is the second in command to Pharaoh, that this is a very important person. Yeah. We really need to have favor with this guy or we're not eating.
Yeah.
Right? So
this guy's got our food.
Yeah. And so they come and Joseph recognizes his brothers. And now Joseph is kind of in this place where he's been he has not had contact with his family for well over 10 years.
Yeah, 15 years at this point.
15 years because he was sold into slavery at 17.
Yeah.
At 17, he was sold into slavery. By this time, he is like 32, I think.
No,
30.
Actually, it would have been the 7 years of prosperity first. So it's actually been 20 years. So he should be 37, 38 by the time that he's actually interacting with his brothers again.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since he's seen his brothers.
Yeah.
But he recognizes them.
Yeah.
He knows them, he recognizes them, but he kind of pretends to not know them. And, he's doing his Pharaoh kind of get up.
He's not immediately like, hey, it's me, Joseph.
Yeah. And he does all these tests. He sends them back. He says, hey, bring your smaller brother, bring him here to prove that you're not spies from another nation. Like you need to prove yourself before I give you any food. Yeah. And so they do this. And the whole time Joseph is kind of providing for his brothers as they do it. He's slipping grain in their knapsacks and he's returning them their money, all this stuff. He's caring for them, but he is testing their honesty. He's testing his brothers. And really, we learned kind of two big points from this part of Joseph's life. One about suffering and one about reconciliation. The first one, suffering, we've said this kind of often, we kind of developed this over as we've read. And so we started off with suffering starts suddenly. Yeah. Right? But you made the point that just because it starts suddenly doesn't mean it ends suddenly.
Yeah.
Sometimes
it can be extended.
It's prolonged, it's extended. And then this past week, we kind of made the third add-on is, okay, even when you get through a time of suffering, there may be a time when God has you confronted again.
Yeah.
But this time on the back end, you're not necessarily going through it, but you are confronting the person, the situation, whatever it is. In Joseph's case, he's confronting the very people
who sold him into slavery.
Yeah. Very emotional moment for Joseph, which the Bible highlights as a very emotional moment.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is the reconciliation factor, where Joseph and his brothers, there's trying to be a restored relationship between Joseph and his brothers. Joseph is testing their honesty. And as far as the brothers know, they don't know this is Joseph. So they don't know that they're like
being tested.
You know, they're just doing whatever they're doing to stay alive.
Yeah.
But it gives us insight into, you know, when we do hurt someone or when we do make a mistake towards someone, like reconciliation should be something that we seek after. And the only way that that happens is if we do the hard work of acknowledging our wrongs and being able to admit that.
Yeah.
And so we kind of learn these lessons from Genesis 42. I would recommend reading it again with your student because it's a powerful chapter.
Yeah.
It is.
And his brothers we're not at the point in the story where there's that full reconciliation and return to normalcy.
Nope.
But their first thought that is either prompted by guilt or God, but probably both.
Yep. Mixture of both.
They start to be tested and they stop and they say, this is because of Joseph. It's because of what we did to Joseph. And so it really starts with the brothers acknowledging, like, Joseph has to confront what was done to him, and the brothers really have to confront what they did. And both are doing it at the same time without the brothers knowing that Joseph is having that confrontation too. But it's a really good chapter about just acknowledging how to move forward after a big action of suffering has happened. Even if you're the one who, you know, propelled
did it or contributed to it, which I think another thing we learned from the chapter is it takes time. Like there's an effort, like the brothers have to be intentional to I mean, they don't know it's Joseph, so it's a weird dynamic. But I think the principle is the same, that they're working hard to prove their honesty and to earn their trust. That principle is there, even in just earning the trust of the second in command of Pharaoh. But when you see the relation between why Joseph is testing them, you know, you can kind of make that principle evident where it's like, okay, they're working hard to gain the honesty again, to build the trust again. And you find that later on when you're going to be preaching. So that Sunday you'll hear about the full reconciliation.
Reconciliation.
So some questions for you guys to continue the conversation going, especially on the lead up to this Sunday. Definitely, you know, keep asking some questions and engaging in the conversation, because again, Sunday's it's gonna be like the climax to the story so far, where Joseph is, and I'm not gonna give away your sermon or anything because I've read it 2 times, but Joseph is gonna give something very beautiful, and it's just a very beautiful conclusion to the whole story of his life and to Genesis. And so definitely keep having the conversation. But these questions are to kind of help facilitate that whenever you guys do devotional times or anything like that. So the first question.
And definitely reread 42 as well. I think you already said that, but do reread the chapters as we're going through. Because now, especially now, we're really breezing through the end of his life. So again, take time to just re-emphasize the chapters, especially from Wednesday to Monday. It's a longer gap now, but But anyway, so it's about this idea of confronting your old, again, suffering, like real suffering you went through, real periods of suffering, and having to look back at them, or again, be face to face with what caused it. It's a terrible thing. But like, what do you think could give you the courage to go through that? And we've talked about it, for Joseph, it was faith. Like his courage for addressing this confrontation was driven by faith. And time again, it was faith. And he didn't even know it, but God was actually using his testing of his brothers to position them in the way that God had promised Joseph at the start of his story.
Yeah.
And so it's all faith and trusting that God's working.
Yep.
But you can also give practical examples like, you know, like, oh, I think having other people that God has placed in my life, that gives me the courage to, you know, like a support system is very helpful in confronting something that you went through. And
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, a good friend group, good community.
Yeah. There's a lot of practical everyday elements you could point out, or there's the bigger theological themes of faith and humility and just a reverence for God that can also help us have that courage. But or it can be the people in your life or this specific thing, you know. So, you know, guide them along, but we'd love to hear what you think.
Yeah, and I think
that courage.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's a very, I mean, trying to think being a teenager again, going to school, there's a lot of drama in schools.
Every day.
It's a dramatic thing to be a teenager. And so, like, they get into fights, they get into arguments, friends break up, they get together again, it's a mess, and it's crazy, and they're offended by things, and they, you know.
And everything seems a million times more important than it does later in life.
Because you're navigating. I mean, you're learning to navigate conflict in schools. You got a bunch of kids who have different personalities and different ways of growing up. So everyone is different. And so, you know, evidently you're going to have conflict and stuff. But this question helps because there will be times where a student is, say, backstabbed by a friend or betrayed or... I don't know. I'm just trying to think of examples from my school experience. But it's going to happen. And you got to know how to go about that. Do you just brush that person off forever and label them as like, you know, this person to never be named? You know what I mean? Like, or do you work towards reconciling with a friend? And what does that look like? Okay, well, that looks like either, you know, if it was you who did the hurt, admitting and acknowledging the wrongs to them, or if they did the hurt, they have to get to the place of confronting you, or you confronting the hurt that they did. So, it could be scary. But the things that you were mentioning kind of give courage.
And again, it's notable, you already mentioned it, but the Bible specifically pauses to say that Joseph turned away and wept.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's a lot of details in this conversation that are probably left out. It's probably a longer interaction, but it points out that Joseph had to turn away. He was overwhelmed. And so don't feel bad if you're also overwhelmed. Like, it doesn't paint Joseph to be this absolute, like, titan of faith. Like, he does break down, and he does feel overwhelmed. Like,
he's very emotional.
And that's okay, because, you know, we're all human.
We're human, and what was done to him was wrong. And it was hurtful, and it led to a lot of suffering. And so having to confront that again, having seen his brothers, I mean, realistically, I'd be very surprised if you didn't break down or have a moment of just like human reaction. You know? So just like you're saying, don't think that you are not having faith or you're not having trust in God if moments of emotion like that happen when confronting these things. So I think that's good that you mentioned that. Second question, I put up 3 fingers. That's not good. Second question, reconciliation isn't easy, but it's worth it. And so what do you think? And again, these are very specifically personal questions to the student. Sometimes we've tried to kind of keep it vague, but I think this time we're going to start trying to do a little bit more pinpointed questions. So the first one was pretty pinpointed. What can you do that would encourage you, give you courage? Second one, what do you think makes it worth it to seek reconciliation or to deal with put in the effort and deal with the pain or the awkwardness of confronting some past trials? Or admitting your wrongs. It's like, that's painful.
One of the hardest things.
Yep. So I think like if we are going to, like if we are going to think that reconciliation is worth it, we have to think, okay, what makes this worth it?
Yeah. What is the purpose?
What is, like, what will keep me going to actually make that scary step of, okay, I did wrong them, I did betray them, I ratted them out, did something bad. I really gotta apologize, but I don't want to. It's awkward.
Yeah.
What's gonna make you be from there and get you to take the step to there?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I can't think of any example.
You're all burned out. You're all sermoned out because you're preparing for your sermon. Yeah. So
Yeah. I'm sure there are practical, real world examples.
there are. But we'll let you parents
Yeah.
do that with your student.
Yeah, you got no backup on that one.
But I do think these questions are important as we think about suffering, as we're learning how to deal with suffering, how do we deal with these hard times, these trials, because they're going to come, you know, whether your student is a teenager or they're a young adult or they're an adult, like these conversations will be helpful for them in the long run. They're going to remember these principles and things that you are teaching them.
And you'll literally always be reconciling something.
Yeah.
Like, it may be small, it may be huge, you know, it may be life-altering, I need to fix this, or it may be like, that was a little mean, I shouldn't have said that, I should. Like,
Dude,
reconciliation will always be a part of their life. And so if they know how to point to, okay, what gives me courage to do this, and what is the purpose of this, it's going to be a huge aid in approaching those conversations with the correct heart and perspective.
I think that's a great way to end it, man.
All right.
Solid.
Yeah.
You want to close this out?
Yeah. We just... That was close.
Do it! Like, I almost made it.
Yeah, I almost made it. Well, yeah, as always, we hope this conversation starter was a blessing to you. We hope that it sparks some incredible conversations in your family devotional time.
Yeah.
If you need anything, if you need any questions answered that pop up in the conversation that you don't know how to answer, contact Mario, contact the youth team.
Yeah, absolutely.
We hope that you have a great week.
Yep. Hello, parents. This is Pastor Mario. Thank you guys for joining us for this week's conversation starter. If you want more ways that you can engage with your youth, you could check out the other conversation starters here on my side. Thank you guys for joining us. Hope you guys are doing well.